Well, good day to you. It is August the 24th. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing, and I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. And I want to do what I always like to do at the very beginning of these videos. I like to talk about the most important thing that you can do after listening to this video. And that is taking an extra step and do some research. So if you're interested in this information and you want to know more, or if you want to see if there's any truth to this information, or you already are starting to think there might be something to it, in either case, the best thing to do is to do your own research. And I've included a lot of different types of links, but the two at the very top I think are the most important to start off with. The Share International site, and then right below it is a YouTube channel that talks about, is actually an hour-long video of Benjamin Creme talking about this information. It's a wonderful video, so hopefully you'll take the time to do it. You want to come back and join the discussion? You have a question perhaps? Post your question in the comment section, or you can email me that question to searchforsigns@mail.com, and I'll try to answer that question in the next video. If you have a comment, just want to let me know what you think, that is fine, and just post a comment. All right, now I had some wonderful comments since the last time I put a video up, but I do want to just focus in on the question that Timothy asked, which is, did Ben, meaning Benjamin Creme, deny the existence of Satan? So, did he deny the existence of Satan? The simplest answer to your question, Timothy, is did he deny the existence of Satan the way that most Christians believe Satan to be? Then yes, he did, because there is no truth to that. It's a myth. Did he deny the existence of Satan in the way that it was intended, in the way it was written into the Bible? Then the answer would be no, because Satan was written into the Bible not to record the historical actions of a fallen angel from heaven that would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. It was written in there to talk about the selfish part that we all share, which is our humanity. You know, we're selfish. And that's what it was written in, and that's what the intention of writing in Satan into the Bible. If you look at Satan, just the word Satan in the Bible, or the devil, it's always lowercase. Same thing with the Antichrist, unless it's at the beginning of a sentence. And it's the mandala effect. You would say, oh no, that's not true. Well, if you look at the King James Version of the Bible, it's all under lowercase, which would lead someone to believe, if you really look at it from this perspective, that perhaps the authors of the Bible were not referring to Satan as an individual, but more of a thing. So anyway, it's just something to think about. And even Lucifer, which has also been kind of roped into meaning the devil, is a perverted and very distorted view of what Lucifer really meant. Lucifer is actually Latin, which means bringer of light. It doesn't mean anything evil at all. It shouldn't be feared or scared of anything like that at all, because it's not talking about that. Now, there are nefarious forces on this planet, but it's not an individual in that way. They're a group of very, very advanced masters, just like our masters of wisdom that I talk about, but they're devoid of love. They're the lords of materiality, but it's not, and they influence humanity in a way, just as the forces of light or the masters of wisdom do. And so it plays out all the time. And the last time it really played out was during World War I and World War II. You could very easily see the forces of light fighting the forces of darkness. Now, Satan, just as the Antichrist, and listen to the way I put this, our view of Jesus and our view of God are all myths. So I'm not saying that Jesus and God are a myth. I'm just saying our view of Jesus and God is a myth. But Satan, for instance, and I'll give you an example, okay, in what I think Satan is. I know you didn't ask me my view of it, but you know, you're talking to me and you're not talking to Ben, because Ben's passed away, so you can't really ask him that question. But when I started this channel, I wasn't really familiar with this verse. Okay, it's a verse that Paul wrote. I think it's in Corinthians, and it's even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. Even Satan can disguise himself as an angel light is the verse. So I wasn't really that familiar with this verse. I didn't really think on it or ponder on it. And I started putting these videos up, and that was one of the first comment that somebody put out there was, oh, see, this proves what Paul said is true. Even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. See. Because I'm talking about an individual who's a teacher, nothing more, doesn't want to be worshipped as a deity or anything like that, doesn't see himself above God, isn't, anything other than will eventually inspire and galvanize humanity to be the best that we can be, right? And come together as a humanity, bring about peace. Because he's talking about that, he must be Satan. They spent all of about 3.5 seconds listening to the video. They did no research on the topic. They've never seen Maitreya in their own lives. They have never seen him and recognized him on TV. They have never experienced his love and his wisdom or tried to apply his teachings, nothing. And yet they got it all figured out in about 5 seconds. He is the Antichrist because I said, or Ben said, that Maitreya is here to show humanity how to create peace, that it's actually possible. Because of all of the disharmony in the world, all the wars and the terrorism are all man-made. Man can solve that problem by doing one thing, instituting the principle of sharing. He's not going to bring about peace. Humanity is going to create peace. He's just going to show us the way to do it. So they think that Paul, 2,000 years ago, was talking about Maitreya because myself and others talk about Maitreya in that way. Now, what I think he was talking about, because when I read that, let me go back. So when I read those comments, I went to my Bible and I picked it up and I went to that verse, and even Satan can disguise himself as an angel of light. I would say, just reading it on first reading, I was like, he's not talking about an Antichrist figure. What is he talking about? And I pondered on it for a while. I can't remember exactly how long. And then I had this thought, Tim, and this is just a thought. I'm not saying this is the truth. I'm not saying this is what Paul was saying, but just think about it as an alternative view of what most people would think that he was talking about. I think he was talking about intention and motive. And that sometimes you might think the most lofty, most idealistic thing that you could do, the most helpful thing you could do, the most loving thing that you could do is actually selfish. And Paul lived quite some time ago, and he was talking to people who were totally ignorant of life. They had no idea what was going on the other side of the planet, let alone 10 miles from where they lived. They had no idea what was going on inside their own body. In fact, if you read the Bible, I can only name a few organs: eyes, ears, tongue, and heart. Was that 4? There's no mention of the liver. There's no mention of the brain. Nothing. Because they didn't do autopsies. They didn't know what was going on inside the human body. And then if you take it to the scientific discoveries that we've made over the last few years about the mind, about psychology, about intent, even so, had he written a letter to the Corinthians and said, hey, make sure you check your motives, make sure that your intentions are pure and they're not selfish, they would have no idea what he was talking about. And remember, Paul was the one that coined the phrase, don't throw pearls to swine, right? So he wouldn't throw pearls to swine. So he had to write it in there in a way that they could understand it, or at least attempt to understand what he was talking about. But I personally think that in no way was he talking about any Antichrist figure, let alone Maitreya. So that's what I think he was talking about. Or even talking about Satan himself, as most people would think Satan to be. But in every way, whether it's Satan, or Jesus or God, how we view ourselves is how we view those things. Okay, so Maitreya puts it like this: as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. So if you are somebody who lives life with a lot of fear and you're very religious, well then the devil's around every corner. You turn the lights off in your bathroom, the devil might be waiting in there for you. I don't know. I mean, there's some really paranoid people out there, right? But yet, everything that they do that's wrong, That's a sin. Anything that anybody else does that's a sin is because of who? The devil. It's not their fault. It's the devil's fault. They just have to watch out and make sure that they aren't influenced too much by the devil, right? That's what they're thinking for the most part. And I'm oversimplifying it, but that's kind of how they think. They used to put people to death because they thought they were the devil. And it was just because they thought differently than them. Perhaps they were women that were freer thinkers than most women. So they thought the devil was influencing them and they burned them at the stake or drowned them or whatever, right? I mean, it's crazy. But yet we still kind of do the same thing today, even though we're a lot more educated than they were 500 or 600 years ago. Now, if you look at God or Jesus, I don't think Jesus or God is a myth, but I think that the way that we view God is a myth. This goes for everyone, and myself included. There is not one person that's immune from this until you become a master and you know the truth of life, and then you don't have that same kind of experience. But because they know what God is, they know who God is. So if you ask Maitreya, do you believe in God? More than likely he would say no. He already knows who God is. You don't have to believe something that you know, right? But thousands upon thousands of years ago, humanity were basically hunters and gatherers. They lived out in nature, right? We all lived out in nature. And our God was of a nature quality. So if we were hunters and gatherers in those ways, we would pray to a God that supported the hunt. Tim, when was the last time you prayed to God for a good hunt? Have you ever done that? I know I haven't. I've never prayed to God that Publix, the supermarket that I always shop at, has the type of cereal that I want. I know that they have it there because of the logistics and the supply chains that bring it there. And if they don't have it, I get another form of cereal, right? I don't have to worry about it. But I've never once prayed to God for a good hunt, ever, because I'm not a hunter, right? But yet that's how we were 10,000, 20,000 years ago or so. Maybe even less than that. Just a few hundred or 1,000 years ago, right? So as man so relates to man, does man relate to God. So if you're a Christian, and I live in a Christian nation, and I live in this very, very southern part of that Christian nation, which is referred to as the Bible Belt, I have a good sense of what Christians believe because I'm around them all the time. But how they are is how they see God. If they are greedy, always wanting to become richer and acquire more wealth, well, then they pray to God to be blessed financially, right? They give money to the preacher who promise them if they give them money, they will receive more wealth in the future. The prosperity preachers and so forth that are on TV, and also not on TV, but still promise that to their congregation and so forth because they want the wealth, right? I mean, it's crazy. But it begs the question, who created whom? Did God create man in his own image, or did man create God in his own image? And I would say both are true. So you look at this same scenario, right? If you're critical and very, prejudiced towards other people of other beliefs and so forth, your God supports your beliefs and is against them, against others who believe in what they believe. If you're homophobic, don't understand homosexuality, think it's wrong, well, guess what? The Jesus that you pray to is going to send them to hell because of what they do. If you're a homosexual and you're a Christian, well, your God's not that concerned about that, is it? Right? My mom's a good example. She's, identifies as a Christian, but she's very laid back. She's accepting of other people's beliefs, and she doesn't think that you're going to go to hell just because you don't believe what she believes. If you're born in the United States, you're born in Alabama to a very Christian family, you got about a 99.9% chance of being just like them, unless you revolt against them because of the oppression that it caused, right? But you have a 99.9% chance of being a Christian. The chance of you being a Muslim or a Buddhist is almost zero if you were born in rural Alabama or rural Georgia or rural South Carolina. You will speak English, you'll be American, and your Jesus is an American because that's who you are. That's the way it works, right? And I could say the same thing about myself, Tim. I believe that humanity is one. Guess what? My God is one. My God is unity. My God is harmony through diversity, right? The way that I see life is like that. I want what Maitreya is advocating for the world, which is for us to share. Guess what? My God, and my Jesus even, wants that and is working toward that. But there are people whose Jesus isn't the slightest bit concerned about sharing, although he talked about it in the Bible, right? Feed thy sheep, give all your riches to the poor and follow me, and those kind of things, right? But if you are a staunch Republican living in the United States, go to church every Sunday, your Jesus is, supports business, is a capitalist, supports Donald Trump if you're a supporter of Donald Trump, right? And if you don't support Donald Trump, your Jesus doesn't like you at all. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the way we see life. As man so relates to man, does man relate to God. And like I said, I know you talked about Satan, but you have to talk about this in this way because the way that what we read into the Bible even is how we are. I always encourage everyone to look at some of the truths in the Bible and apply it to your life and see what happens. Try to live life a little more harmlessly because what Jesus said, what you sow shall you reap, versus focusing in on the ideological differences that it creates or whatever. You know what I mean? So you can look at it and read it in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't mean that my interpretation is 100% right. And I'm not claiming it to be, but I at least try to look at the Bible when I read the Bible and try to find things that I can apply to my life. Because other than that, it doesn't really mean much, as far as I'm concerned. And it means more to me to look at Satan as a selfish part of who I am and who everybody is, versus thinking that it's some boogeyman out there that's getting everybody to do something, and I don't think there's any real benefit or value in that. Does that make sense? So, and I'll leave you with this. Okay, so, again, I've kind of gone on a tangent, but I'll leave you with this. The hypocrisy that really drives me crazy, because I watch a lot of politics on YouTube or on the news or whatever, but the thing that really drives me the most insane is most fundamental Christians are Republican, right? Evangelical Christians, you got about a 99.9% chance of voting Republican. The Republican platform is personal accountability, personal responsibility. You are responsible for yourself. The government shouldn't help you out. The markets do whatever they do. You can make as much money as you want if that's what you want, but you shouldn't have to give that to anybody else because they are responsible for what they did. The United States isn't responsible for helping any other country out because Sudan or the Congo, even though they've been oppressed by all these empires over the centuries and they've been exploited by them and put down by them and so forth, they are responsible for their lot in life. It's not your job to help them out. And yet, the hypocrisy, this is what drives me crazy, is then spiritually they go to church and they can be just as mean and nasty as they want to be all week long and go to church and pray to Jesus for forgiveness, and then all is forgiven at that time. They have no personal responsibility for anything they did. They don't have to clean anything up. They don't have to apologize to anybody. They don't have to make amends. They don't have to try to heal any kind of wounds that they caused in other people. They just have to pray to a God that they believe will admonish all their wrongdoings by just asking for forgiveness. That's the important thing. I think it should be the other way around. I think spiritually you should take 100% ownership of what you did. If you harm somebody, you should try to heal that harm as much as you can, right? Or face the consequences thereof because of what Jesus said. What you sow shall you reap. And then try to live within that law. But yet when it comes to others, especially those who are less fortunate, we should help them out as much as we can. And encourage our world leaders, encourage our leaders of our nations to help out countries that are poor. Because those people didn't get the advantages that I had or whatever like that. So that's why I see the hypocrisy in it that just drives me insane. I love you guys. Thank you very much for the questions, Tim. You guys enjoy the day, and we'll talk to you real soon. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.